Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show that talks about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and we share our stories of connection and to our higher self, to that which is bigger than us, to whatever your concept is of that bigger self, that bigger awareness, that bigger consciousness. And we share our stories around that and how we came about to understand it, or big awakening moments, or how it came to teach us about who we were, in fact. And we love to have those conversations here on Soul Nectar Show. It's such an interesting time. Every episode I love. And I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I'm so glad to be here. I love helping people to take that sacred journey to self and to step into that journey across the threshold. You know, we get so scared when we get close to the threshold, but then as we get over it, we see there is no reason to be afraid at all. In fact, that this is a really incredible journey when you start taking it. So today, I'm really excited to have with us Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you.
And so as a relationship consultant, mediator, speaker, and author, Dr. Rhoberta is the relationship help doctor. She provides urgent and ongoing care for relationships in crisis. Her mission is to help people stop tolerating abuse. Even in the United States, Marines have sought her help. So Dr. Shaler focuses on helping the partners, exes, and adult children of the relentlessly difficult people she calls hijackals. She offers strategies for dealing with the constant uncertainty and jaw-dropping behaviors of the difficult, toxic people that she calls hijackals. So she's authored about 16 books, and she's a speaker. She's got a host of 2 podcasts of her own that you can check out, and you'll have the links. And she's got her own channel, Emotional Savvy. And so we're going to have a really interesting conversation today, I know. Really excited about this topic. So Rhoberta, let me know where you want to start, but I would love to hear about your journey to understanding your life's work. Like, what were some of the things that woke you up to, like, hey, this is the thing I'm supposed to be doing?
Well, I was born into a family of hijackals. So let me just define my trademark term for us so that we use that word and we know what we're talking about. Hijackals are people who hijack relationships for their own purposes. They're interested in their own getting. And then they relentlessly scavenge the relationships for power, status, and control. So I was born into such a family. My mother was an overt hijackal. My father was a covert hijackal. I'm an only child. Fortunately, when I was 3 years old, I recognized that I needed to go to church. I needed something different. And they didn't care about me, so I toddled off and went by myself. They knew the minister. He lived across the road. They didn't care. So I always knew that I was different than they were, and something was off about them. But you can't go unscathed through that journey with people like that who raise you, because so many things are being put in subconsciously. You're just a sensory sponge in an environment taking in how the world works and how to survive. So I went through my journey, which most people do. If you're raised by hijackal, you'll attract a hijackal. So you'll have a hijackal partner. You'll end up maybe divorced from that one, as I was. You have children. You have to co-parent, on and on. But still, you're in the moving forward stage, and you're not really going back and figuring it all out. So my work has always been in helping people with conflict, and I have a PhD in psychology, so that was something of great interest to me. But I remembered back when I needed help, when I wanted to go outside of the home and say to somebody, my mother is awful. And every time I did that, I learned very quickly not to do it very often. The person would say, oh, how dare you speak of your mother that way? She's lovely. And it was a place of shutdown. And when I would try to get help, I would get the same thing because I was in a small town. So one of the things that we know about hijackals is that they paint a public picture of perfection, and at home they create a private place of pain. So when I started to put all the pieces together and realized that people hadn't been able to help me, then I realized I needed to focus on this and help other people, because they need to see it and they don't happily recognize it usually, and they need help to do that, then they need to realize why that has been okay with them at some level. Then they need to remedy and recover and restore themselves. So that's why I've been there, done that, have the nasty video and the ragged t-shirt.
Wow, the nasty video and the ragged t-shirt. So, this is definitely an interesting topic to me, because I found that, in my own journey, it's kind of a rocky beginning, that there was a lot of things that I thought was normal that then I found out, wait a second, as I got more love and more connection in these spiritual groups, as I started down this path and I started getting healing and I started feeling better in myself and attracting better possibilities, and people that treated me in a new way that was respectful, I started going, wow, like that's not normal. Like that, I mean, it's normal for me, but it's not, there's another way. Like, I guess I started opening up to notice that there was another way of being with people that was completely different. It felt a lot better.
Yeah, that's what happens, because you're right. It's normalized, because from the moment they brought you home from the hospital, that was the only thing you knew. So that was the way it was. You don't start, we don't even have language to question what's going on in your most formative times. So it's just, you're comfortably uncomfortable perhaps, but it's normal to you. And so then we get busy, learning and doing and being and beginning a life and a career and maybe a relationship and all. And we don't go back and find out all the things that were kind of installed without our permission during the growth of our brain development. And that's why it's always wise to go back and do your work once you have come to that, somewhere around, I'd love it if it was 27 or 28, but it seems to be a little bit later than that when people actually start to take stock.
Yeah, because we usually have to wait for it to get pretty bad before we're willing to do the work. So I know on my journey that I had to use a lot of different modalities. Like, I had to explore a lot of different kinds of modalities to heal. And, I started off with psychotherapy because that was that was what was offered to me. And I did that for 20 years. And that's a lot of dedication.
That is.
A lot of dedication trying to make it work. And at the end of that, I said, you know what, this 20-year relationship, man, like, I give up. Like, we're done here. If it's really like this, then I'll just be bad. That was my conclusion at the end of that. But then, of course, it didn't end there, because I found this mentor and I was a yogi and I started spiritual mentoring, which was different than psychotherapy. And then I started learning about shamanism and healing, and I went on all these retreats and all this stuff I started learning that I didn't even know before.
Right.
So I suspect that you've had a similar exploration of alternative things. Could you give us some insight?
Yes. When I was 19, I was done with the church. Not because it hadn't given me so much, but I thought there was something much, much bigger. And I was in a fairly small town, and I used to frequent the library because I didn't fit very well. So the library and I were close, and I was in the 100 sections in the Dewey Decimal System where I usually hung out. And a book fell off the shelf, and it really did. And it was Yoga, Youth, and Reincarnation. And so that was my answer. Big, thick book. I took it and went, oh, there it is. There's something much larger than what I have been taught. That's what I was looking for. So I started my yogic journey when I was 19 with that book. And at that time, nobody knew what yoga was. I had to go to a big city, and I went to a Yoga Vedanta center, and there were a bunch of stocky, bald men there, and they didn't want me around. And that was my introduction to yoga. But in the end, after studying greatly and widely in India and elsewhere, I received my certification from Swami Vishnu Devananda. And I had a holistic health and retreat center where I also had my private practice. So when I'm working with my clients, I'm working on many levels, because it's not just straight up one therapeutic model or talk therapy or whatever. I'll often have people doing particular yoga postures, or changing their food sources, or looking at the different things that are happening in their environment, or the feng shui of their space, or whatever. it's all um, kicked off by the person's openness to what they're willing to embrace.
Yeah, definitely. Sort of like the iceberg metaphor. The top of the iceberg is sort of what is talk therapy, right? Like psychotherapy. And then there's like all the stuff like underneath that you're like,
Mm-hmm.
what is that? Why is that even happening? And especially with the early childhood stuff, it seems like the brain is just making associations between things. It's just like this vast web of connecting points between all these things in your brain that
Mm-hmm.
might not even have been related had you not related them without knowing that you were relating them. So talk a little bit about that unweaving process.
Well, let's think about brain development. Our brain is not fully functioned and formed until we're 25 years old. And so there are different points along the way. First of all, we don't have language. So what happens? Let's just think about an example. What happens to a child who's kind of unwanted? And they're brought home from the hospital. They're not welcomed by joy. The very existence is not a celebration. They're not treated as though they are the center of the universe and that they feel they are. So they quickly learn they're not good enough. They feel all of these things. Has nothing to do with the language. It's the faces, it's the energy, it's the time spent, it's the time left alone, so many things. And so that begins to inform the child of their place in the world. And then it goes on from there. So we're going to have experiences. So many things will have happened to us. Maybe we had that experience. We're not happy in the world. Maybe we're not the most outgoing, bubbly child in the world. Maybe people start to bully us. Maybe we have experiences at college, maybe at work. These things shape and form us. And our brain in the beginning is taking all this in without language. Eventually we get parietal lobe development. Then we get prefrontal lobe development. All of these things are stages, but they don't happen until we're much older than one would realize. So all of that that got installed in us, imprinted on us, has an impact. And then we maybe get into a difficult relationship and we're like, I must be a terrible person. This person is causing me to second guess myself and question my sanity. They're telling me everything is my fault. I must be terrible. But no, there were lots of pieces in our story, in our beginnings, in the way that we've gone on this journey that set us up to believe that we would be at fault. And then we accept that, and that shapes our entire life. And the good news is that, especially if you were with a hijackal, not your fault. Nothing they told you that was your fault is your fault. So there's so many things to undo and to see differently, or to make new habits or new mind habits, or have a new mindset, or learn how to accept yourself as a fully functioning, wonderful human being who deserves to take up space and draw breath.
Wow, well, that's a powerful journey because I know my own journey through it was, you know, very intimate, and I'm still in it, because I'm not dead yet. So I'm still processing it. So I always reach these new levels of understanding, which open up even more and more and more, which is the great part about the journey, is that once you get over the initial part where it just seems like this thing won't move, it just keeps happening. But then you reach a place where something worked, something shifted or something moved some piece of it. And now it starts to move. And then from that point on, it just kind of keeps, layers and layers keep making themselves aware. But
Mm-hmm.
it can be a little crazy making. Like if you're
No,
still
it's a
engaged.
lot crazy making.
Okay, it's a lot. It's true. It's a lot crazy making. So when you're coming to these new awarenesses on your spiritual path, and you're opening up and you're realizing, oh wow, okay, I can show up like this. But then if you're still engaging in your dynamic that you came from, you could feel really crazy. And of course they think you're crazy. So, how do you help people cope with that, I guess, is my question.
Well, the first thing is to know you're not them, and to sit with that a bit, because if they're our parents, we have an innate belief that we are them. even though we would have had individuation at the moment that we realized we're not part of our mother anymore, which is about 2 years old, we still belong to a family. We belong to them. We're part of that clan, if you like, that family. So we have these beliefs, and we have to first realize, maybe what they say about me, think about me, maybe what is not right. Maybe I don't have to accept that what they have told me is true is true. And that's the glimmer that says, what if I could look at this differently? What if there is another whole way to be in the world than the one I'm currently occupying? And so when we open our minds to that, when we open our hearts to the fact that maybe we've been hurt, but maybe we don't have to be, maybe it's not about us, maybe it's not our fault, then we can have space. We can create space to entertain new ideas. What if this was the case? What if this meant that? And you gave it this other meaning for all this time till now, but what if it didn't mean that? What if what somebody told you was untrue? What if what someone told you was true about you was not? Like I write many articles, but I wrote an article about lies your narcissistic mother told you about who you are. You know, there are so many things that person would have done to make themselves feel better that you would have internalized because you didn't know better. And now you need to go back and look and say, those were lies. They were not true. But to have the courage to open that up and to say, no, I matter. Therefore, I deserve to have the best rest of the journey I can possibly create. That's the pivotal moment.
Yeah, that is powerful. For me, what I'm exploring right now is forgiveness work. And I think you're probably aware of it, radical forgiveness work. And that has been really interesting because I had to confess I'm only day one into it. But man, day one, like I did the worksheet, and what I didn't expect is what happened. Is it through the process, I did not expect this, but it should have been obvious to me. See, this is what I think is so cool, is that when you get the realization, you go, that should have been obvious to me. But it's so not, because it's just like right in your face, but you can't see it.
Yeah.
So, you know, what happened was, as I went through this process, I realized that last year, my dad died, my stepdad, who has been like a force of just generosity and love and kindness and support and rationality, and just like such a blessing, you know, in my life, and since I was 5. And he passed away last year. So ever
Sorry.
since he passed away, thank you. Ever since he passed away though, man, the shit hit the fan. let's call it what it is. The shit hit the fan. And I was like, what happened? Like, I know my dad left, but like, I did not expect like everything to be like torn apart the way it was. Like, I didn't expect all that destruction to happen. So in this process of doing the first worksheet, I realized, oh my God, like the death of my dad triggered all the same feelings and experiences I had when I was 1.5, and I lost my natural father.
Sure.
It was all the same. When I looked at the words of the way I was feeling, the betrayal, the loss of family, I'm alone, you know, all of these things that I was feeling is exactly the experience. I was just like, wow. So like my little inner toddler has like 2 words it knows. Like, how many words does a 1.5-year-old know? Like hardly any words. Has been going through extreme distress for the last year since my dad died, and way before that, but like this just upheavaled it. I just had such compassion for myself, and also
Good.
like amazement at how those experiences in your brain are so profound. And when you unlock a piece of it, like it can color everything you see, everything that happens, you're just creating it for yourself. It's anyway, go ahead and talk on that. That has got me like floored right now. So
Well, basically, we've been talking about this. This is just a prime example of it. Things get tucked in. You know, you didn't know that you could revisit that experience or what was in there to unlock at a very, very early age in yourself until something triggered it. It's like playing a chord on a harp. You know, when you play this note, it resonates through all the others. And that's what happens with our wounds. So when we get wounded, all the other wounds sit up and go, oh, yeah, I remember that. And the ones that are most similar resonate most deeply. And you'll have those moments that you just described. But when you were 1.5, what you needed was the fact that you needed to be celebrated and welcomed with joy and all of that. And then this person who did all that wasn't there anymore. And we're very, very self-centered when we're children. We're very ego-centered, not in an arrogant, conceited way that we often think about ego, but the way our brain is wired is that we think we cause everything.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. I was working with two little girls whose dad had moved out, and I've been working with the family, and they wanted me to talk to the girls. And so I said, do you know why Daddy moved to a new house? And the children were 5 and 7, and this is the place where brain development shifts. And the 5-year-old said, yes, I know. I said, well, why did Daddy do that? She said, I left my bicycle behind his car. Now, that's the way that the brain works up until that point, which is I do things and then that all goes out from me. I cause all of this. So I cause you to smile and then I smile, right? So there's this mirroring that's going on. So when we have these early experiences, they're tucked away, but we're just trying to figure out how to survive in this world. We're not like cows and horses. We don't get spit out of our mothers in the middle of a field, get licked off, and then we jump up and run around the field. We know that we're a blob with no locomotion.
Yeah,
we know we need
totally
those giants.
defenseless.
Yeah, we need
Yeah.
those giants in order to survive. So we start figuring out how to keep the giants happy. How do you keep, well, they don't like it when I do this. Well, they like it when I do this. They come when I scream. They don't come when I scream. We're calibrating. Am I okay? Am I okay? Am I okay? And they're telling us that. So when one of the people that you smiled at and who smiled at you and loved you disappeared, you think there's something wrong with you. That
Yeah.
how did that happen? What did I do? You know, what did I ever do? And it's not a conscious thought process. It's just part of the way that sensory development in the brain goes. So then when it actually happens to you as an adult, whoa, you know, oh, I remember all that. All
Oh
of a
yeah,
sudden.
no, that's a repeating pattern. And I'll totally fess that up. You know, like my whole life I've been like, it's my fault, obviously. I mean, all the major agreements I had with my former partner, the father of my children, were about like, it's all my fault, you know? Like, so I just like attracted that to me without even knowing because it got into my brain. You know, I got this idea before I even was conscious that, you know, this
Mhm.
is all my fault somehow. And I think kids get that idea. Like,
Oh, they do. They
parents had to
do.
be super mindful of correcting that idea, I think, because I think kids are gonna automatically want to help. They want to help. They see the pain or they see the struggle and they want to help. And they think it's their fault. We got to like be mindful about correcting that early.
Well, that's how they want to stay safe, is if they can fix it, they're safer. So absolutely, yes. And we need those adults. So we want them to be okay. We need them to be okay. So are you okay? You know, let me cuddle up to you. Let me do something that'll make you feel okay because I need you to take care of me. Right. And then we get into those very, very convoluted relationships where we end up taking care of the giants.
Yeah,
That's when dysfunction really messes with our minds.
that's super dysfunctional.
It's super dysfunctional, but it happens, and particularly happens if you have a hijackal parent, because all of a sudden they're not taking care of you. They want you to be mindful of their needs, and that's all that matters. And so things get very convoluted and inverted at that point. You lose your childhood because you are no longer having somebody who's interested in how you feel.
Mhm.
They just validate you for what you bring to them. You know, having been raised by two hijackal parents, I really consider myself super blessed to have been talented and smart because well, my mother used to say to me frequently, it's a good thing you're smart, young lady, because you're fat and ugly. But what happens,
Wow.
yeah,
Ouch.
she was a charmer. But the thing is that,
At
that
least
we
we can
have,
laugh about it now. I mean,
well, I mean, she was who she was,
mhm.
right? You know, and of course she, once you recognize that that's what she had to stay to safe, and it had nothing to do with me, then you begin to unpack all of that, and you can leave that behind. But it takes a long time because in the brain development stages, you're taking things in a different way. And so it's very important to be able to go back and look to see, where did I pick these things up on my journey? What am I resonating with? When this string gets plucked, what are all the other things that I resonate with? And let's see where we can go and find them and bring them up to date. Because I want to choose what I'm doing now as opposed to be the product of what's happened to me.
Yeah, and I think that's what the reinventing your life is all about, at least for me. Like when I use that word, it's like it's I'm choosing to reinvent it. Like it was there one way, and then I'm going in and I'm recapitulating it would be like the Toltec word. To go back into that thing and be like, you know what? That's how it was. And now because I'm the only one with the database memory of it this way, I can change it. Like
Exactly.
I could change it. There's no other database out there that's like saying it has to be this way. I can change it.
I can make my own sense of it from this point in my life, and I can make the sense I choose to make of it. You know, if I look back on my childhood, you know, I was abused in many, many ways, but I was also sexually abused in the home. I was abused by my father's friends, you know, because I was an object. I was an object that he had. And my mother was an overt hijackal, so she was just trouble. And he didn't want to be around her, but he had me. And, you know, it was strange. And, you know, things happened to us. Like, I didn't know this, of course, but when I was 2 years old, my mother got pregnant. She was not going to have another child. We lived in a small town. Somehow she bribed a doctor. At 6 months pregnant, she was just going out of her mind. She did not want to have another child. So he said, well, if you will allow me to do a hysterectomy, I will abort the child at 6 months. So in my history, and I learned this from my father later on, that when that happened, they came to him and said, I hope you're happy you killed your son. And at that moment, I had to take the place of that son. So an only child with a double job now. I have to be the only child who's trying to keep two of them happy. And now I have to be the boy my father lost because it can't be my mother's fault, right? And so I remember when I was 10 years old, I was going hunting with my father, and I didn't get over a log fast enough. And my father was really grumpy about it. And I looked at him and I said, I'm going back to the car. I'm never going to be your son again. Right? These are pivotal moments in our lives that, okay, I was a pretty old soul when I was a kid. So these kinds of things were not surprises to me to say or do, but these are the things that we have to revisit and realize what happened to us had nothing to do with who we are. It's what was happening around us by the needs of the people around us. And so we took it in, and we can actually replace it. We do not have to keep it. And that's the joy of being an adult, that you get to make it up brand new. You know, I
Yeah, you
have a,
get to make it up brand new, but that's actually a gift of a child. So it's like being able to rekindle that child within you, even if you never had like a childhood, like, 0 to 5, pretty rocky for me. So I don't like I had like playground and all the fun stuff and, celebration, like a lot of people talk about that. It's like, yeah,
not
that's
so
too
much.
much. So but you can still be a child. Like I also had a lot of time sort of with my imagination in my room. And so there was pieces you can rekindle that. And when you get, I don't know, for me, like it now at this space, it feels like like that magic is coming back, like that ability to like see the world through a child's eyes is
Mm-hmm.
coming back, because that's what happens when you go through this work and you get rid of the crap.
You know, the joy for me, and I think you're absolutely right. The piece that I was fortunate to have was I had godparents. So after my mother had this hysterectomy, she had what they called back in the day a full nervous breakdown. So she was in a mental hospital and she had electroshock therapy. And so she was gone for 2 years of my life almost. And so I was with these wonderfully loving older people who had, they were retired. I was their whole world. And so we gardened and we played and we had chickens and we did all of that. So I have this little idyllic piece in my early development that saved me. Now, yes, I grew up to understand that the male in that situation was a raving hijackal, but it didn't matter. I felt loved and taken care of and spoiled and focused on and all. So I had a piece of that. Some people don't. So, like you were saying, we have these little pieces that we can say, yes, that was right. That was nurturing. That was wonderful. And yes, there were other pieces that didn't. But let me bring forward the ones that did work and let me heal the ones that didn't work. And then let me make other choices, because that's where your power lies, in what you think and do and say, and how you are in the world. You know, your integrity lies in the place where the alignment of your values, your vision for your life, your beliefs, and your purpose. When those things are aligned, then you are going to have a life that is peaceful and in integrity, and it's going to be joyful, but you create that.
Yeah, you create it, and it deserves your protection, as
Mm-hmm.
you're going through that process and reclaiming that part of you that's true underneath all the creation from your environment, which I think is also true, because in some ways, because we came in to learn about ourselves and to grow, and in a shamanic sense, making soul agreements with other
Right.
people to learn these lessons. And so there's a way in which that's a pathway for forgiveness, in just saying, okay, this person was playing a role in my life, and we agreed that they were going to be, Dr. Evil in this play, and I'm going to be Austin Powers, and and so, in my life, and in their movie, maybe I'm Dr. Evil. I don't know.
That's
But,
right.
there's this way we make these agreements, and so we're going through the motions of feeling and experiencing it.
Yes. And so then we have to know, what would we like to feel and experience, and move into that. You know, certainly look at where we've been and know what we're leaving, because we don't want to go there again. But also then turn. I have 2 podcasts, as you mentioned. I have a third one starting in January, and it's called Focus on Forward. Because no matter what the journey that needs to be taken care of up till now to heal, we also need to be focused on what are we creating in this moment moving forward. So yes, continue with dealing with what needs to be, but have a very clear idea of what you want your life to look like and who you want to be, because only then will you feel peaceful. And there's joy in creating a life that is about who you are now and what you want, and celebrating yourself and being excited about things, or even going back and playing because you missed that piece.
Yeah, like going out, getting your paints out and doing some finger painting, or just, having those moments of like, wow, I get to revisit this. I get to create this for myself.
Yeah,
And speaking of that, it's so interesting how I don't know, in my journey, so much of this stuff came up when I had my own kids. It's like,
right.
as soon as I birthed my first child, poor thing, I love him so much. As soon as I birthed my first child, like all this stuff came up. It's like, bam, I'm mad about this. Bam, all this stuff. Like, damn, I'm depressed.
Filters are
Like,
off. Yeah.
like, gah, and here's this being who wants every bit of my attention and he won't stop crying. And I'm like, why won't you stop crying? So it was really an interesting experience to realize this, just the nature of the subconscious experience. Like at that moment, I started learning about this, and I didn't even know what I was learning. Like I was just trying to take care of this baby, right? I'm just seeing a black hole in the middle of the shower floor, going, I'm going to fall in the hole, like I'd never seen anything like that before. And just that awakening to like, wow, like there's so much I don't understand about myself and how my brain works and my subconscious and my body and all of these things. And it starts this journey of learning more and more about ourselves and healing the past so that we can step forward into the future, right? I mean, being
Yeah.
a mother to a child and bring that person forward.
And you can do those things this way. There, yes, I'll go back and heal a little bit, and I'll bring this forward. And you have the stepping back and forth between the two arenas of life. You don't have to say, well, I'm never going to think about that, and I'm just going to think about this. People try to do that. You can't do that. That's not healthy.
No, it is because it comes in layers. It's like in and out breath, as the ocean comes in and the ocean goes out.
Yeah.
And we're called to look at the past. Okay, we'll look at the past, or we're called to, rest that for a little while, go into the future now.
Mm-hmm. And we need balance in all things. And I don't think we're ever balanced, Carrie. I think we're always balancing. Day to day, we're
What?
balancing.
There's no balance.
No,
There's
I'm
no
sorry.
stasis.
No, there's
There's
none.
no
And
stasis.
no,
We're never going to be done.
I know. I think it's called life.
Oh, shit. Oh, it's good though. I think we just have to learn to be excited about that.
Well, I think knowing that there's flow. I mean, flow means there's no stasis,
There's
right?
no stasis. I was actually like listening to one of my teachers who's talking about 2019 and was talking about how 2019 is the year of the artisan, the artist.
Oh,
And if you
oh.
think about artists, they're very comfortable with change. They're very comfortable with creation, and as part of the creation process is destruction. So it's
Mhm.
it's all like you're talking about. It's like all of that. We're looking, we're deciding, we're choosing, we're changing, we're in motion, we're in transformation, and that is the whole of 2019.
Yoo-hoo.
Just people strap on your seatbelts, okay? Like we're on a ride.
Yes, and you know what they say, that creativity and people who are creative are comfortable with ambiguity. That's one of the things that allows for creativity. Nothing is nailed down. Could be this way, could be that way. Might happen, might not happen. Might like it. No, no, I don't like it. That ambiguity that we're comfortable with, that's what is the bedrock of creativity. And so this is going to be quite the ride if that's the year we're
It's
in
the
for.
artisan, yeah. And
Yeah.
some people are going to not like it very much. You want to stay
Yeah.
stuck.
Well, if you're a person who stays stuck and rigid in your beliefs or at the way it's supposed to be or how it's always been, and don't rock the boat, if it's not broken, don't fix it. If you're in that mindset, it could be quite a ride.
It's going to be a little difficult. I was thinking back towards your hijackal, and I was thinking, what is that? That is someone who is actually kind of rigid. It's like, no, it's this way, and this is the only way that I can ever perceive it because I can't allow anything outside of this because I don't know, it hurts too much, it's too painful, I can't take it, I don't know what to do with it, whatever the reasons are. It's like, no, this is the one highway, and you're either on my highway or you're like out of my world. It's like,
Well, there's a reason that we use the term people are petrified. A hijackal is
that's a good.
petrified about life. So it has to be like this, and I have to win, and I have to be right. The thing about a hijackal is if they have to say black is white in this moment to win, they will. And if 20 minutes later they have to say black is red to win, they will. And then when you say, but 20 minutes ago you said black is white, they'll say, you don't listen very well, because they have to be right.
Wow. And and they're stubborn. This,
Yeah.
the stubbornness dragon. One of my teachers, Jose Steven, talks about these influences, as sort of like dragons that sort of torment you and come after you. And there's various dragons, like the greed dragon or the arrogance dragon or the impatience dragon, but the stubbornness dragon. Now that one is probably the trickiest one of all of them, because it masquerades as all of the other dragons
Mm,
because it has to be right.
there you go. And then we have the mask over that dragon, which is what's called persistence. When persistence is masked as stubbornness, and stubbornness is masked as persistence, do we applaud or do we feel like, oh no, right? So so there's a problem there, that's an automatic emotional setup, because we don't want to be judgmental that they're stubborn, so we'll say, well, they're persistent. And that can sometimes be a trap
Well,
too.
yeah, because sometimes there's just agree to disagree, but that doesn't work in that world.
No, hijackals won't have that because they have to be right. So it is a to the death battle, and it can be over whether we're going to have Thai or Mexican food on Friday night.
Yeah, it doesn't
You
have
know,
to be. I mean, everything's a fight. Everything's a
yeah.
fight.
Well, everything's a win, a potential win, and they have to win. The only time that they won't have to win is when they're in what we call the love bombing stage. They're afraid of losing you, or they want something from you. So they be this wonderful, magnanimous persona that they put on to give you what you want. It's not real. It's them manipulating you to get what they want. But you honestly believe, because you're hooked on hope, that the person you fell in love with is actually really the person, and this whole horror that you've been going through, that's not real. If you only loved them enough, had compassion for them, nurtured them, cherished them, didn't demand, weren't impatient, never nagged, then if you just morphed yourself into this incredible creature, they would then change. No, they won't. They will not change,
No, because the
because
stubbornness dragon has got them by the tail.
exactly, they're in
Gonna change.
petrification,
Yeah.
right? So no, that's not going to happen. So if you're hooked on hope that that charming person that you met at the beginning, who seemed to mold themselves to be your perfect soulmate, is somehow going to come back after they've shown you this dragon, no, they're not. That was the facade they put on to capture you like a Venus flytrap. And now you're in there and you keep thinking it's going to open. If you press this button or that stamen or whatever, it's going to magically open this. I mean, there where you find the soul nectar, right? So
Yeah.
you're going to find the thing that you can push from the inside of the relationship that will allow them to open and flower and bloom and blossom, and everything will be lovely. No, they just were that Venus flytrap that, yes, come here, I'm so attractive, I'm lovely, come closer, come
Or maybe
closer.
they've really committed to more than they could do. There's also that. It's kind of like I see that in myself sometimes, where in these relationships where I want to re-engage because I think, okay, this time I'm wise enough. Like I can do it now. I'm wise enough now. I can go in there with all my spiritual tools and I can do this thing. And I'm not
Yeah.
going to take it personally, and I'm not going to make assumptions, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm it's going to be great this time. And I'll go in with all this like hope and like, yeah, this time. And
Yeah.
I could be perceived that way, like we were just describing, like be like, oh, well, she said she's going to do all this, and that. And then like a week later, she's like, I'm out. So like I get in there and I think, okay, great. And then all my optimism just goes,
Yeah, but that's enthusiasm that you're describing. That's not,
it just goes like, nope, 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 no, it's
that's
not
not a death wish,
gonna, it's not gonna happen. I get in there
No.
and I think I'm more grandiose than I can actually do, and then I get humbled and then I say, okay, well, maybe
Yeah, that's not what goes on with
I'm
hijackals,
not as
not
strong
at
as I
all.
thought I was.
That's you coming to self-awareness. That's not hijackals.
That's
They're
me
never
having awareness that like I cannot. I still don't have whatever it is. I don't have it. Like,
Yeah, the hijacker will never do that. The hijacker will just build up cases against you that make them look right and good. And, they use superlatives all the time: the most, the greatest, the best, the greatest number, the highest number, the most wonderful. I mean, they're always talking about themselves in those terms. They have the best lives possible because they created them, because they are the person who is the best. Well, no, Not possible, not likely, and you are going to go on with that delusion for your life in grandiosity. And once I recognize that that's your trip, I'm going to take another one, right?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like leveling the playing field, right? Like this is another thing that happens is that I sort of noticed that what I was doing is I would, you know, admire somebody like a spiritual teacher or something, and I'd be putting them on this pedestal. So I'd like put them up here. The pedestal thing is part of it. And I was like, wow, I'm putting this person on a pedestal. And I kept having all these people that wanted to help me say, Carrie, it's like this.
Right.
It's like this. Like it's this. And I kept having to say, oh, okay. So and this is what the shamans say in Peru, and the Carol shamans is they say everybody the same like this. Nobody's like
Mm,
this. Everybody's like this. I think that's a
exactly.
key. If we can do this, we can step out of that whole like, I'm better than you and I'm gonna make you worse than me in order to feel better kind of thing.
Yes, and I think that there are three hallmarks of healthy relationships. Any relationship, whether it's with your adult, once you're an adult, any relationship with a parent or a coworker, a partner, anybody, you need equality, reciprocity, and mutuality. And if they're not there, you are not going to have a healthy relationship. So you get to a place where you can just say, okay, is there equality? Is there reciprocity? Is there mutuality? And if there isn't, is there enough of those things that it seems healthy and we can keep it balancing? But if in fact one of those things is missing or there's not much in any of those categories, it's not going to work. So you can try and compensate and accommodate and compromise and do all these things, but it's not going to work.
Especially if the stubbornness dragon has them fixed right here and you're changing and you're growing and then they're like stuck here and you keep going in, but now,
Yeah, exactly.
I,
That's how it works.
but now with these tools. So wait a second, I got these tools now. Now we can talk.
Yeah, and you're ever hopeful because as you grow, if you're like most people, when you grow, you think everybody else grew. So now
Mm-hmm.
you're really hopeful that okay, there's a like we're talking today and it's close to the holidays. How many people are going home for the holidays hoping it's going to be different?
So many.
Yes. And yet the fact is that they've grown. And so they're assuming that now they have the better skills. As you said, now I can do it. I can handle it. I'm strong. But they're also got this delusion that those other people changed because they changed. And, it's not going to be true. You may go back, particularly the people that I've talked to or have listened to my podcast or YouTube channel, they're going to go and they're going to have changed their expectations. Okay, it's going to be the same, but I'm going to be different. That'll be cool. But if they went thinking it's going to be different, their devastation when it isn't and their anger and they beat themselves up, why did I ever think it would be different? And they don't have that power. You don't have the power to make other people different.
No, you
That's
can't.
something you do for yourself. And then you either accept or you create geographical and emotional distance from them. you know, don't think that just because you're growing, somebody else needs to.
Oh, there you go. Just because you're growing doesn't mean somebody else needs to. So true. Wow. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up. So tell people how they can work with you, Roberta. How can they work with you? Do you have a free gift for them? And then how can
I
people work with you?
do. Uh, my free gift is an ebook that is absolutely essential. If any of this made sense to you, it's absolutely essential. Go and read it. It's called How to Spot a Hijackal. You'll find it at hijackals.com. Surprisingly not. You spell hijackals, hijack, ALS.com, or else jackals.com, because both things work. So how to spot a hijackal. And if you'd like to work with me, you'd like to be part of my membership site, which is called Optimized Circles, only $5 a month. I took everything off that my groups that were on Facebook, I felt that they weren't safe enough. I brought it all back to my own website. So you can join my optimized circles, $5 a month to be part of the discussion forums and everything there. So you're safe over there. Not you're not in a public forum. So go to my website, forrelationshiphelp.com, FOR relationship HELP.com, and my YouTube channel has the same name, For Relationship Help.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And of course, if you're interested in reinventing yourself and reinventing your life, and you want to do it in a fun, dynamic way with energy and prayer and singing and community and whatever else, then feel free to go to my website, kerrihummingbird.com, Kerri, hummingbird.com, and check out the Reinvent Yourself program. So I always like to leave with kisses. Are you ready, Rhoberta?
Sure.
Okay, we're gonna kiss. I'm gonna kiss him and kiss him and give him kisses. Here the kisses come. We did it at the same time. That was awesome. Hope you guys have a wonderful week, and I hope this was helpful for you. Check out Rhoberta's website if you feel like any of this resonates and you're like, that's exactly what I'm dealing with. Go check it out, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time on Soul Nectar Show. Have a great week. Bye, everybody.